Welcome to BizTech's Asia's Hottest Startup Show. Now, we feature hot startups across Asia sharing their entrepreneurial journey and sharing with us why they just may be Asia's next tech unicorns. Now, today we feature Hubilo, a virtual event startup, and its founder and CEO, Vaibhav Jain. Hey, welcome to Asia's Hottest Startup Show, VJ.
Thank you, Brian, for inviting me.
Now, Vijay, tell us what Hublo does specifically and what is your business model?
Yeah, Hubilo is a virtual event platforms for corporates, associations, educational institutes, and event management companies. Where because of the pandemic, all the physical events started to get cancelled or postponed, and that's when most of the companies wanted to move their physical events online, and we help them doing that.
All right. Now, you have a very interesting history. You were founded in 2015, but
Yeah.
the business really didn't take off till 2020 when the pandemic was a catalyst for your business. Now, walk us through your entrepreneurial journey and Hublo's dramatic growth story over the last 12 months.
So I'll take about 3 to 4 minutes to explain that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, please.
Good. Okay. So when I started this company in 2015, I started as an attendee recommendation platform for events, where if suppose you are, Brian, going to an event where the 1,000 attendees are coming in, my platform would suggest you that these are the top 10 attendees whom you should definitely meet at this event. That was a niche problem that I was trying to solve. Figured out quite quickly that this is a problem that nobody wants to pay out for. We struggled for initial 1.5 years, gradually pivoted into an event management software for enterprises. We're doing fairly okay, is what I would say. Reached to about 2 million ARR, touch base almost a million attendees through 600 plus in-person events that we did. But
That
in
was for what year?
yeah, this was till Feb 2020. So
Okay.
post our gradual pivot to event management software, because initial 1.5 years we struggled with the attendee recommendation platform.
Okay.
When we pivoted, our revenue in Feb 2020, our revenue went to zero because globally all the events started getting cancelled or postponed. And Hubilo had actually made a niche for itself in large scale events like Dell Innovation Summit, Global Entrepreneurship Summit, where travel is a must for attendees to come and attend that particular event.
Okay.
Because of that, we were the first. Because of this, uh, large scale events were the first use case who had actually put their entire event planning on hold, and we started seeing a lot of cancellation requests that were coming in because of the pandemic situation that had happened. Um so when this was going on, I saw that my revenue in the company had plummeted to almost zero, and we had two choices at that time. Either we could let go of our 30 employees and start something else in fintech, because that was next wave that was happening in Asia, or figure out something and take a calculated bet in terms of how can we keep the company afloat.
How
What
much of runway did you have at that time,
yeah,
money-wise?
we had about 5 months of runway. We did actually a cost cutting across the organization, increase that runway by 2 more months, so that we still have about 7 months to play our calculative bet. And this was in the month of Feb, where virtual events was not a hot space for startups or hot space for investors. Nor did we know that okay, this is going to become this big of a market. We just wanted to pay off salaries to our employees. That was our only motive. What we did is, as part of a proof of concept, we sent across a newsletter to our subscribers, and in that newsletter, we got a very healthy reply rate, because the newsletter heading was that, would you be interested to know more about a virtual event platform? And we got a very healthy reply rate, and that was a proof of concept for us. So once that was done, I gave my team an ultimatum of 30 days, that whatever you
30
do,
days.
30 days, yeah, whatever you
Okay.
want to do, because we had to run multiple experiments to understand which position do we want to take in the market further. And virtual events was the first experiment that we wanted to. So I gave my team an ultimatum of 30 days. They came up with new set of marketing collateral, sales collateral, support collaterals for the virtual event platform. We created an ebook and all of that as well. But my tech team used the code that we had written in 2015, which was an attendee recommendation platform. We used that existing code, quickly integrated with Zoom, and launched our first event in the month of March for about $250. So that's how the entire journey started. And then we kept on releasing features after week. And and that's the story about our exponential growth and how the entire Hubilo 2.0 journey started.
Okay, so what do you think were the key success factors that allowed you to pivot so quickly? Obviously, having that base code was a very important factor.
Yeah. So that base code the length of that code was just 2% of the total code length in the company. We have now commented 98% of the code that we had ever
Wow.
written, and that 2% of the code is now responsible for the entire revenue in the company. So we were lucky to actually build out that particular code, and that code was built through interns. So the amount of investment that had gone inside that code is quite less.
The other thing that I think struck me also was the fact that um, you ran multiple experiments at one time. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's quite an interesting way to iterate very quickly.
Yeah, so I actually divided my sales team into multiple parts so that we just started pitching to clients, understanding that which experiment would work.
Okay, so you were selling vaporware for a while.
Yeah.
So the sales teams were out, you're trying to get requirements, and then basically you had teams at the back trying to make it happen.
Correct. Yeah. So that is what we were doing. And that actually helped us become much closer to the customer, understand the customer needs. Instead of having something in our mind and then building it out, we included customer in our product development cycle and built out the features that were actually truly needed by all the stakeholders at an event. And all of this was and all of this was happening when the entire country was in a lockdown situation. So we had to like bring the entire company together towards just one common goal, that we need to ensure that we figure out what we need to do in life.
And so when did you really start getting revenues out of your now upgraded product?
Yeah, so when I saw that one of our clients, without me being involved, my sales folks were able to close a $18,000 deal.
Okay.
And at that time, I knew that, okay, if they are able to do this without involving me at any point of time, I knew that we could actually work towards it and work on top of it and then multiply this further. So that was that moment that I realized that, okay, we have actually hit the right experiment that we were running.
So that at that point, there was a light bulb for you. We have product market fit. We have traction.
Yeah, because that sales cycle took only 18 to 20 days. That's it. And earlier, before pandemic, to close an $18,000 deal, it took a lot of days. Plus, it was some kind of involvement from my side as well, which wasn't the case this time.
Now, how big is your team? You started with 30 people. You said you kept them, you cut salaries and stuff like that, brought your burn rate down to 7 months. But then, how big is your team now, and what's the size? Who are the key members of your management team?
Yeah, so within 3 months, we returned all the salaries to all the folks
Okay.
which we had cut. We gave them a healthy bump in their salaries as well, because we did not do an appraisal in the month of April 2020. Now our team size is about 200, and we are hiring almost, I would say, 10 folks every week at this point of time. The team is pegged to grow to almost 350 to 360 by the end of this year.
Wow, that's impressive growth. But obviously, that's a combination of funding, which we'll talk about later in this interview, and also the fact that you have revenues coming in. What sort of revenues are you on now?
Yeah, so during our PR that we announced during in our seed round, we had mentioned that we'll be touching 10 million booking run rate soon. So we are already at par of that. Like, we have crossed that particular bridge already.
10 million per year US dollars?
Yeah, 10 million per year monthly booking run rate.
Okay.
So that was our aim, that the PR release that we did in the month of October, we had mentioned that we'll be touching this number soon, and we have already touched that number and are much higher than that.
Now, can I ask you this? This is a very important thing. What makes a Hubilo platform unique in the virtual events market? Because what happened was, yes, in February and March, it was something unique. But now globally, there's like 150 platforms plus.
230
Swapcard, on Zoom, AirMeet, there's just dozens of these guys. So what makes you special, and what has given you that traction?
Yeah, so as per my count, there are 214 platforms who are doing something or the other related to virtual events. But in terms of maturity, I would say that there are about 7 to 8 platforms at our level where we actively compete with those platforms. Things that actually help us win deals or help us differentiate from other competitors is we've actually understood what matters to an event organizer. 3 things that matter to him. The first is, can he bring his own branding or not towards an event? Because physical event organizers used to spend a lot of money to ensure that their event looks different than the event that has just happened on that physical venue. We wanted to give a similar opportunity to online event organizers as well. So in our case, you can bring in your entire event branding, and it wouldn't create a it wouldn't look like any other virtual event platform that already exists, because more or less all virtual event platforms look and feel the same. They look similar in nature. Second is, we actually give an organizer an opportunity to create a wholesome experience by giving a lot of mass engagement options like contest, gamification, leaderboard, which actually allows you to not just engage attendees through one-on-one conversations or through speaker conversations that are ongoing, but you can bring in a lot of virtual goodie bags, gamify the entire attendee and engagement experience, which is actually pretty much needed when it comes to associations or member driven events. And third is the intelligence that we provide that directly connects with their CRM stacks that they currently use. Our platform gives out an attendee persona to every attendee that comes to an event, and this actually helps an organizer to run marketable campaigns on top of it once the event is over.
Now, what has been your key customer acquisition strategy? Because I understand that only 12% of your customers actually come from India, and 45% of your revenue comes from Europe. So what has been your customer acquisition strategy, and who are your key customers?
Yeah, so our customer acquisition strategy has been content. So we write a lot of education-based content, create a lot of ebooks, and ensure that they reach the right folks. So content marketing and inbound is our major focus as well. 95% of our entire revenue is through inbound channels at this point of time. We are also doing a massive event in the month of March where we are calling key speakers like Guy Kawasaki, Scott Brinker. Such events also help us leverage our brand, increase brand awareness, and also call folks that might be potential customers for us. In terms of our major clients, it's actually spread across multiple verticals, uh, like corporates, associations, educational institutes, event management agencies, and and exhibition and trade press.
Now, so let's take a look at the industry as a whole. Now, with the pandemic now continuing longer than expected, how do you see the impact of the physical events industry?
So, Brian, there are two things to it. Let's assume that a company did about 12 in-person events before pandemic. During pandemic, they'll be doing about 10 to 12 virtual events where all of their physical events would turn into virtual. Let's assume post-pandemic situation, we are seeing how a company is playing out its event strategy now is that they'll do about 4 in-person events, they'll do about 3 to 4 hybrid events, and then they'll do about 10 to 12 virtual events. That's how they are going to play out their entire event strategy. So post-pandemic, I'm not saying that the physical events are going to go away. They are going to exist. Large-scale events can only happen in a physical way, where in-person experience is of utmost importance. They'll add a hybrid angle to it so that they are able to get more audience and more eyeballs through virtually. And then there are going to be separate set of virtual events only, which are going to be virtual first, that did not have a precursor physical event attached to it.
Okay, so essentially what Vijay, you are saying is the pie is actually going to increase after, in 2021 onwards, as we go to hybrid events. So we, instead of pure physical events, because of the ease of organizing a virtual event, your actual events are going to go up.
Yeah.
So that's good for you as a business.
Yeah, that's good for us. And that like virtual events, I've always been saying to a lot of folks that I meet is that virtual events is a new marketing stack that's been created. It's a new marketing landscape that's been created, which will allow a lot of companies to leverage it either for brand awareness, pipeline generation, or just moving leads down the funnel. Once that has been created, a lot of offline dollars is going to go into online as well, and as well as new dollars, new budgets are going to be created only specific to virtual events.
Now, you have managed to secure some stellar names as part of your funding round. So you went through your funding journey very much quicker than most startups. So walk us through your funding this year, last year and this year.
Yeah, so my first fundraise was a bit difficult. I actually met almost 19 investors in India. A lot of them did not have thesis around this particular space. And it was my first time fundraising. So I did not know also what all is needed to raise a fund. I actually met Lightspeed at the last. They were the 19th investor that I pitched to. And Hemant, who's our partner from Lightspeed India, had very strong thesis about this market. And he quickly understood what we were trying to say. Also understood the kind of depth that we brought to this particular space because of our experience of running a startup in this space for about 4 years. That actually helped us when Lightspeed India. Once we did that, we understood that we have raised less. One is that, and we got a lot of inbound interest as well post our PR. And within 2 months, we were able to close our Series A round as well through Lightspeed US and Baldwin Capital.
So what was the catalyst for that? Did you not raise enough money in the seed round, or was it a fact that there was an opportunity to raise more money for you to accelerate your growth?
Actually, the second one. The first one as well, because we did not know that this space is going to get this competitive in terms of fundraising. So other startups also in this space have raised huge amount of money. And if suppose we have to be a contender for becoming a market leader in this space, we need to have enough war chest to hire the best talent in the world to ensure that we reach that particular place.
Now, what sort of runway does your fundraising now, and how much have you raised, by the way, in total?
Yeah, we raised $23.5 million as part of our Series A round.
And what sort of valuation is that?
So valuation is something that we won't be able to disclose.
Okay, but what sort of runway will that give you then?
Yeah, so the runway in terms of the growth that we are seeing at gives us a good amount of 18 months of runway.
18 months. Now, where do you see your execution challenges? Because you, Vijay, are moving to San Francisco.
Yes.
And so what's the strategy behind that?
So like being with the best of talent that have experience of running a global company as well as a global G2M strategy. So that's one of the reasons why I'm shifting. I'll be hiring my marketing and sales leaders from the US to ensure that our entire G2M strategy is built out from there.
Now, it's taken you, Vijay, 6 years to get into a position where you're one of Asia's hottest startups.
Yeah,
what advice would you give other entrepreneurs and startups from the lessons you've learned from your journey so far?
Yeah, so one big lesson that I have learned is that market is king. The team that you have, you can get more folks, you can modulate your team. The product that you have, you can pivot into something else. But market is the ultimate king at the end of the day. And if you get into a large enough market, solving a niche problem as well, that is okay. So choosing the right market from the start is of utmost importance.
So choosing the right market, because your first part of your startup, your market was too small, right? You took too small a niche.
It was big, but it was too competitive is what I would say. And I think we were trying to solve a lot of stuff in our earlier pre-pandemic days. But now, because the market has completely changed and we were actually at the right cusp of the market being risen, we were one of the early movers as well in this particular space that actually allowed us to capitalize on this.
Now, Vijay, thank you very much for coming on board Asia's hottest startup show.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for inviting me.
Now, we've been speaking to founder and CEO of Hublio, Vaibhav Jain, and I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out www.biztech.asia for business and technology conversations. This interview will also be on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites. Please subscribe and like our Facebook and LinkedIn sites.